Shambho Mahadeva. So, what did we say last? Third Savanam, after having properly lived during the process of execution of karmas in one's life, the identification of karmas could be done through the Rudra, it's the mid part, mid one, no? And then we have detailed last class we have explained about the how to live the life, live what's called living, and how auspicious it is. Every action, every thought, how it is created, is it? And how the action is auspicious, how the thought is auspicious, how the action is auspicious. And what is nullifying the actions that we are, how we commit mistakes, how we do this. Nullifying the actions, ignorance and other things we have detailed. And so a person who having been lived in the Madhyavastha and the Rudra, who identified, then he does the oblation to the Aditya and Vishwadevas. We also explained about the Adityas and Vishwadevas last class. Atha जुहोति नमः आदित्येभ्यश्च विश्वेभ्यश्च देवेभ्यो देवीक्षद्भ्यो लोकक्षद्भ्यो लोकं ये यजमानाय विदधाः एव वै यजमानस्य लोके तस्तात्र यजमानः परस्तादायुषो स्वाहा वहतः परिदमित्युक्तो तिष्ठति. Then he proves the oblations uttering the mantras of the salutations to the Adityas and the Vishwadevas who live in the heavenly world. Please acquire the world for me. This indeed is the world for me, so open the doors for that, and shall come to this world after death. Remove the obstacle bar of the door by chanting this mantra, it says. The one who has lived, being the brahmachari, started living the as a brahmachari, started living the life, initially started, acquired the experimental experiences during the process of the Ashtavasus and the Madhyama Rudra. Then he attained the class of the Vishwadeva, and he attains the sannyasa yoga, pronunciation process and sannyasa. And at this point also he gets attracted to the life. The implementation here is that in every stage we said this mantra, whether it is Balya, Madhyama, as well as the end of this also is, because there is attraction in each and every path. And depending upon the necessity of the fulfillment of the karmas, one desires to be born in that Janma. And one gets into that Janma. So he says he is desirous to that. Depending upon the desires, depending upon the thoughts that is created in that, due to the Vaishwanara, the Agni, that which is colorless, formless, tasteless, which is invisible Agni. It's not the Agni, it's not the fire that we call, even though it is translated as fire. It's not the fire. The Agni, that which is invisible, that urge, that jnanam, from where everything begins, from where everything starts, that Agni is the one which is, we said that how the thought is created from the Agni, each and every thought is created from the Agni. What is that Agni? What is that Agni? Agneya means that the absolute purity. Agni is what? Absolute purity. The flame of the Agni is absolutely pure. There is no impurity in that. There are no impurities in that. Absolutely no impurities. So from the Purusha, that which is projecting from the tapo phala of him, from the Purusha, from that Parabrahman, that Chaitanyam which is coming out of it, is in the form of Agni. That Agni is the one which is absolutely the form of the purity. And that Agni is the one, we have explained this about the Agni in the previous one, the last but one class. And that Agni which is creating, that you can connect it with that. Based on that, each and every thought, auspicious thoughts are created. Because how auspicious, why did I say auspicious? That the prepositioning of auspicious has to be understood very clearly. When a thought is created, initial thought is created from the Agni, from the Purusha, from the Jnanam, it is only pure. That coming from the Jnanam, that coming from the purity has to be pure only. Then how the impurities have been created is that what we come later also. Plus that, which again, an ahankara is created by that. An ahankara is necessary as far as when the prana is created. Pancha pranas are, we will be talking about Pancha pranas later. Who is leading this? As we told about in the initially, I think, or in the previous Upanishad also, that when the birth is taken place, how the prana is implanted. When the prana is implanted, what are the qualities that is coming? The prana is that it is the prana, why the prana has to come into a sharira has to be understood also. Based on the previous karmas, karma bala, kriya, karmam, that karma mixed with the half of the knowledge and half the karma put together is called the prana. That's a combination of the prana. So that is why it is divided into pancha pranas. Apana, samana, prana, vyana, udana. And these pancha pranas are divided based on the karma and the jnana. So this implantation of the prana, even though the atma is the one which is born first, then only the other things taking place. Then the prana is inducted into the atma. Why? Because the atma is that which is nischala, which has got no movement. Why there is no movement? There is no chalana. Why there is no movement? We have spoke about this nischalata of the prana in the Shiva Sutras, if I remember correct. How the nischalata takes place? Why the nischalata takes place of the prana, atma? Why? Because it is all pervading. There is no chalana is required for that. That which is in the atma, that will be that will have the chalana, but the substratum of everything on which everything is staged cannot move. If the stage itself starts moving, then the moving on the stage is meant for movement of something else, but stage should not move. The substratum of everything is Parabrahman, and the Parabrahman doesn't move. If Parabrahman moves, then the classification of the analysis or the equations, everything is, all the calculations goes wrong. So there has to be a substratum. The substratum of the Jiva, Atma or the Paramatma or any Atma that is concerned is that the principle is that Nischalata. On that Nischalata, Chalanam has to be created. And in that Nischalata, all the Jnanam is pervading only in the Jnanam, in the Nischalata, in the substratum, from where the Jnanam can be derived. See. Jnanam cannot be moving around, or it is not split, it's not splittable, it's not divisible. It is not, it cannot be divided, it cannot be, subtracted, it cannot be added, it cannot be dissolved, it cannot be, done anything for that matter. It is existence and it is stationary and it is Nishala. So that which is moving on the Nishala, on the substratum, has to derive the Jnanam from that. So the prana is inducted into the area of the chalanam of that, you see. So what happens? And whenever this jnana is provided to each and every stage, what happens? The thought, because based on the karma and the jnanam together is the prana. When the prana is in the movement of in the form of the movement of different vayus, different pranas, in the pancha pranas, activation in the substratum of the jivatma or the paramatma or the atma, they create certain actions and reactions. Those actions and reactions are the ones which are creating the mind and the indriyas and the chalanam in that. Based on the chalanam in the mind and the indriyas created by the prana, created based on, not created by the prana by just from somewhere, no. Based on the karmas, that is existing karmas, that which has to be supposed to be done, supposed to be executed along with the knowledge, inherited knowledge in the prana, the one who knows about it, he attains the true way of directing the thought. The one who doesn't have the control of the karma and the jnanam together in the prana, that is why it's called pranayama. The pranayama is not breathing alone. Breathing is one of the exercises of the name has been put as that pranayama. The pranayama is that identification of the perfect combination of the knowledge and the karma together. In which knowledge, in which karma, how the knowledge has to be incorporated and executed is called pranayamam. If this understanding is perfect, if this one can understand it perfectly, he utilizing the Agni, he utilizing the substratum of the Atma, from which Atma is again a part of the Purusha or the Purusha itself, from where the Agni begins, Agni extincts, Agni dissolves, Agni travels, everything. That Agni, utilizing that Agni, which is called the absolute consciousness, absolute jnanam, absolute Agni, absolute purity, when the combination is perfect of the prana, the jnanam, as well as the karma, the pervading factor in the existence, the pervading factor in the jivatma, the pervading factor in the sharira, the pervading factor in the jiva, in the execution part of it, will be knowledge, not karma. The pervading factor would be that. That is the combination, because by the existence of the portion of the jnana at a higher jnana only can execute the smaller, control the smaller part of the karma that has to be there, where it has to be all pervading. The jnana has to be all pervading. So, if the proportion is rightly understood, rightly utilized, the pranayama inside is correct. The prana, that means the chalanam of the knowledge and the chalanam of the jnanam and the execution of karma is balanced, as called as panchapranas in the jivatma. Then the thought created from there, that means the mind generated from there, the thought created from there, and the indriyas as the form of the mana and the indriyas will have the efficiency and the influence of the jnanam that is pervading on the karma, even though the indriyas and the mana is supposed to be executing the karmas. Since here, due to the practice of the pranayama, who is a knowledgeable, wise person, he executes or directs the proportion of the jnanam and the karma into the mind as well as in the indriyas. So the thought that is created from the Agni will be influenced automatically by the execution part of it, that is called the pranayama, and by which the thought will be purified, representing the Agni. When the pranayama is not perfect, it is imperfect, unproportioned, when it is not right proportioned, or when it is not practiced in the right way, even though they are existing, but it is not practiced in the right way, then what happens? Then the mind and the indriyas also will not practice it the right way. So whenever a thought is created, even though the pure form of the thought come from the Agni, when it is passing through or for the purpose of the execution of creating a thought in the mind for the purpose of execution of the karma, see, Agni comes, creates the thought, comes to the knowledge. That's called the Antakarana. We have told this earlier also, in different form. Through the Antakarana, and then this Jnanam comes. When the Jnanam comes, this along with the karmas that is existing will create the mana and the indriyas, and from the Agni, whatever thought comes through the Jnana, it is directed towards the mind, but the mind will be the place where the combination of the execution of karmas and with the Jnanam has to be done, so that the exhausting or creating karmas are done in the mind, in the mana, through the indriyas. But when the proportion is not right with the karma yoga with the jnanam, if it is not proportioned, then the mind will not know what is right. So whatever is created at that point of time by the unpropositioned or proportioned mind, knowledge and the karma will be the representation of the thought, which is incorrect. Only when the pranayama is perfect, 100% perfect, which can sustain the chalanam of the Agni through that in the same form, because the pranayama is meant for making the prana travel from apana to udana. It has to travel from the apana to udana in the perfect sense and in the perfect way of chalanam, as directed from the projection of the Agni, that is called the Purusha. If that chalanam is imperfect, when the pranayama is not perfect, if it is imperfect, the thought that is initiated from the Agni will get distorted because of the vichalana of the prana and goes for the different thought in the form of different way, assimilated in the mana, and mind thinks that it is the jnanam that is provided to him from the Agni. So he executes that wrong thought that has been implanted in the mind by the chalana of the prana and the knowledge and the karmam, is how the thought is distorted. So where the ingredients are important is that the jnanam is jnanam, but the karma is again there. So the proportion has to be right. So one should know how to control it. So in the karma, it's there again the major culprit is the karma and karma bala. So one should know how to orient and control and design that karma to the limit that is proportioned according to the law, to be proportioned with the knowledge, has to be understood perfectly well, and has to limit that karma to that extent at all times. For that purpose, this pranayama has to be constantly, one has to be constantly vigil on the perfection of the pranayama, so that the mind and indriyas and the execution